All right, welcome everybody to the Champions Journey, or the Champions Journey podcast. I can't remember the name of it. I'm so excited being our first show and everything. I'm your host, Scott Jones. We've got our other host, Mark Astor, and of course, Randy Grimes. And we've all got stories and come from different walks of life and different businesses. One thing we all have in common is you don't give up. You keep going. You persevere no matter what the odds are against you. You just keep moving on. And I'll tell you that Mark is a brilliant lawyer, operates here out of Florida. Not enough for him. He's going to conquer the world. He's going into other states and doing other things, working a lot with addictions. And, of course, Randy Grimes, great football player from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, played there for 150 years. And I'm sure that's what it feels like.
His knees feel like it.
Yeah. I moved around like I did, that's for sure.
And what we all have in common is that we all have dedicated ourselves to helping people in one way or another, helping people, and certainly wanting people to overcome things. We've already got people joining in. My friend Karen from Crazy About Costumes right in Fort Lauderdale, she's with us, and I want to say hi to her. Karen Hurley from One Brother, One Sister is with us. You guys
Hello.
know Karen very well, and they're saying hellos. So let's start off. Let's start off with you, Randy, because you're hell and gone from here. You're all the way out in Texas right now, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I was just telling you guys how hot it is out here. They're having some kind of weird heat wave, and it's brutal. I'm in Austin right now, and I'm here visiting at BRC Recovery here in Maynard, Texas, right outside of Austin, and there's a lot going on. I'm just honored to be on here with you two guys and sharing our experience, strength, and hope, and what we've been through. And hopefully, it's all about helping the next person. I learned early in recovery, you don't get to keep what you have unless you give it away. So that's what I'm all about, and that's what this show's all about. So I appreciate being a part of this team. And, recovering out loud. That's basically what we're doing. We're recovering out loud.
Excellent. And Mark, you come at it from another angle, whereas, you don't have your personal recovery. You have a different story about how you got involved in helping people, right?
Yeah, I always sort of joke with people that I'm recovering from the legal profession because I'm a different kind of lawyer and I do different kind of work. But it's definitely, I feel like I'm sitting here with two Hall of Famers. That's what I feel like, not to sound like I have a Monday night football cliche, but here we are. So it's good to be here with both you guys, and this is exciting stuff, and we're going to make a lot of difference here with this podcast.
That's our goal, and that's our hope, and hopefully, have a few laughs along the way, entertain people, and this is a very special person joining us, saying hi, fellows. Excited for your first podcast, and that comes from Sandy. Sandy also happens to be my mom, so be nice.
Thanks, Mom.
Let's not say any, but
I got to get my mom on here
yeah,
as well.
Yeah. We're going to be doing this show every Tuesday at 5. As we move forward, this is show number 1. We're going to be inviting special celebrity guests, sports guests, and people with interest stories, with stories that interest us. And certainly Mark's experience working with people in the legal profession, his involvement in the MMA. We'll talk about that a little bit. I'm still wondering, are you going to crawl into the ring one time on the MMA? I mean, I know you're helping fighters. You're doing different things. You getting ready to get in the ring because you're jacked, brother.
I don't know. I may, what do they say? Hyundai body, Jaguar motor, or Jaguar body, Hyundai motor, one of the two. I don't plan to get in, but who knows if I could be suckered in. I just don't feel like getting punched in the face too many times. I'm monkey enough as it is. I don't know how many I could take, and so I've taken my hits in the courtroom. I don't feel like taking any more in the cage. But who knows? Maybe we all get persuaded to get in.
Right.
And Randy's been hit more than all of us combined. So
yeah, at least I had a helmet on. I was smart enough to do that.
Yeah, well, I wear headgear too when I train, but it doesn't stop your brain from rattling around inside your head. It just stops the external injuries.
That's true.
Yeah. Randy, you were offensive lineman. You were basically target practice for defensive players, and it was your job to stand your ground. Well, obviously to make holes and do other things too.
Yeah, I don't really like your description of that.
I mean,
The point is to deal out more punishment than you're receiving,
but didn't they have an advantage because they can get a running start at you and you couldn't do that?
Yes and no. I mean, you have an advantage because you know when the ball's going to be snapped, so at least you've got that going. You've got one step on them usually, but it's a tough game. You know what you sign up for. And I know I've had over 20 documented concussions, and that doesn't count the hundreds of they call them sub concussions that you get every time a helmet to helmet contact happens, because like Mark said, you can't stop the brain from slapping up against the inside of your skull. And that's where all the damage occurs. So, you can wear all the soft shells that you want to, or take all the precautions, but as long as it's a contact game, you're going to have concussions, you're going to have sub concussions, and that's going to always be a problem.
Well, and it probably was not as talked about back when you played as it does today. Today, its number one concern is concussion. It wasn't a big concern back then, was it?
No, it wasn't. Back then it was the concussion protocol was, how many fingers am I holding up? And if you said one or two, you were back in the game. And that was the whole, one time I got so knocked out in a Detroit game that I walked off the field and sat on the Detroit Lions bench. I didn't even know where I was. And their doctor sent me back in the game. So, concussions are funny things. We didn't talk about them then because, nobody knew a lot about them back then. And
right.
Even now, it's not really the NFL that's talking about concussions. It's, outside groups. It's the Boston Brain Bank. It's advocates for concussions that are talking about it because, the NFL doesn't want to have anything to do with that.
Wow. Mark, as a lawyer, you must perk your ears up when you hear things like this about not paying attention to injuries like that. I mean, that must perk your ears up a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the people that we typically work with are mums and dads whose adult children are having issues of substance use and mental illness. But we've seen our fair share of professional athletes too. And a lot of them have had some type of either effects of concussion, traumatic brain injury. And so, I mean, those things can all contribute to mental health issues. I mean, look at was it Aaron Hernandez, the guy who played at Florida and then at the Patriots? I mean, I think when they took a good hard look at his brain, I mean, he was full of CTE. So clearly there's a connection there, and it's certainly worked. Look, my soon-to-be stepson plays hockey, college hockey. He's been playing since he was a kid. He also played for Team USA last year at Maccabi. He's a goalie, right? So he only has to worry about the puck hitting him at 80 miles an hour. This gigantic piece of rubber. But we got to watch the games. Even the college kids, they're banging each other up against the boards. I mean, it's like every time there's a clash, it's like a car accident happening. So at some point, that's going to have an effect. And you combine that with all the medications that we're seeing prescribed at an incredibly early age now. This is why we're dealing with an epidemic, and it's really been off the charts since COVID.
There's a real connection there between sports and addiction. As far as we see a lot of this, and Randy, you could probably speak to this better than any of us, where there's a lot of addictions that are starting with sports injuries out there. And I'm not it's not the NFL's fault. It's not the Major League Baseball or hockey's fault. It's nobody's fault, but it's pretty common, isn't it?
It is common. And, a lot of it has to do with mental health issues. And the athletes that I work with, I'm quick to not let them blame everything on concussions or CTE because, unfortunately, we can't even see what the extent of somebody's CTE is until postmortem. So, we can only guess at what we think it might be based on how many concussions they've had. But, I'm quick not to let them blame all their consequences or all their history that they've accumulated as a result of self-medicating on head injuries, on TBIs, CTE, and all that, because we have to remove this piece before we can even begin to deal with the extent of CTE or brain trauma, whatever they have. So, but we're athletes are just a reflection of America. We self-medicate all those issues. We try to feel better. We try to think that we're getting back on to where we used to be when, really we're not even close. We're just, dragging ourselves down further. And, yeah, it's bad. And there's all kinds of things that go along with athletes leaving the game and not having that uniform and that identity anymore. And we'll talk about that later too. But, there's a lot of things, and it's not any different with first responders or veterans,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Karen's adding, she said, thank you, Randy. It's what's being prescribed. I mean, that's part of the problem too, is that sometimes we go straight to the most addictive substances in our prescriptions when maybe high regimens of ibuprofen might have worked. Sometimes we jump over that a little too fast. Our friend Justin Giovizat, never mind. Everybody calls him Gio. This is our buddy Gio joining us.
Yeah.
Because Gio, Randy.
Yeah. He's one of the good ones.
He is a good one. He wrote a great book about addictions and recovery and stuff. And speaking of which, you have a book out, Randy, that talks about your journey. And tell us about it.
Well, and it's titled Off Center. Obviously, I was a center, and I was a little off. So that was the title of the book. And, Coach Ditka, who's a good friend of mine, wrote the foreword for it. I was really proud of that. But, I started that project as a platform for my family to share their experience going through my addiction. I didn't really care if it sold a single copy. I just wanted my family to use it as a healing tool to get to have a platform in how they experienced everything that I put them through with my addiction. And, I'm so happy with the way it turned out. Everybody had a part in it. My mom, my brother, my sister, my kids, my wife, everybody that was affected by it. And, I've done a lot of interventions in my 14 years of being in the industry. And I wrote it parallel to a fictitious intervention that's going on because I wanted all the care. I wanted there to be something in that book for everybody. So there's a character in there for everybody that's going through a loved one with addiction. There's that one that's mad. There's that one that's codependent. That one that's an enabler. That one that's that thinks they can just pray it away. Just wake up one morning and be delivered from it. There's all these people and all these characters in it, and I'm just real proud of the way it turned out. I released it over a year and a half ago out at the LA Super Bowl, and it's just going great.
That's great. Justin, our friend Gio, he says his book is a great read and helps many in their journeys. And Karen, my friend, again, from Crazy About Costumes, you need a costume, check them out in Fort Lauderdale. She said, that's awesome. Congratulations on your book. She'll check it out. Now we're talking a lot about addictions now. And, to make it clear again, Randy, you're in recovery. You've had your journey through addiction. I've had my journey. And Mark has, I want people to understand what exactly you did, Mark. You went from a regular law career where you were just kind of like doing regular law, and you started focusing in on people with addictions and mental health problems. How did that happen for you?
So, it's been I always say it's been a long journey for me to find my purpose. I've been practicing. This is my 29th year of practice, and it took me until 8 years ago to really get focused into where I was supposed to be. So, not to age myself, but back in the mid-90s, I was a prosecutor. I worked at the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. I was there for 5 years, and I prosecuted everything from petty theft to first-degree capital murder. So I've seen a lot of different stuff. One of the things I noticed very quickly as a young prosecutor was we were starting to see the same people over and over again. And I said, well, that's odd. Why? What's going on here? And what I realized was that, these people were suffering from issues of substance use, mental health disorders, and there were simply no resources to get them help. The mandate here in Florida, when you are in the criminal justice system, is to punish first and to rehabilitate second. That was the mandate then, and it's still there right now. I mean, it's in, you can just read it right in the rules of criminal procedure. So, back then the idea was, well, if somebody has an issue and they commit a crime, let's punish them first and rehabilitate them second. And so when those kinds of things are happening and there's sort of the stigma that was surrounding those issues back then, and there's very limited resources, well, those people tend to go in and out of the criminal justice system until at some point they end up in the state penitentiary. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. And, what do we need to be doing something better than that. So fast forward, I left in 99. I did defense work for quite a while, represented a lot of different people from different walks of life, made considerably more money because they don't pay prosecutors a lot of money. So you do the job because you just have a passion for helping people. Got married, got divorced. My ex-wife had an alcohol problem, and I was very young and immature, not able to deal with that, which created a combustible situation. So I was married and divorced within the year, and really went on a bit of a journey sort of to find myself because I'd lost my passion for practicing law. The 08 crash came, and I took what I had left of my money, and it wasn't very much, but it was just enough to survive for a couple of years. I moved out to California. I had a really good time out there. And I took the bar out there twice, failed it twice, which was a real kick in the ego for me. I came back about 10 years ago. My father was seriously ill. He was dying. I took the bar one more time, failed it again, and got an opportunity to work for a company down in Miami that teaches lawyers the business side of the practice, which is not something they teach us in law school. They teach us black letter law, and after that, you're supposed to go fend for yourself. And after a year there, I realized it was time to go do my own thing. Now, the underlying foundation of that company was that personal growth has to precede financial growth. In other words, you got to go out and put your big boy pants on and find what motivates you and go help a bunch of people. And if you go help a bunch of people, somewhere along the line, you'll probably get paid for that. And the more people you help, the more you'll get paid. So, that was the philosophy. Now, what I realized also when I was thinking about what I wanted to do was that I had very close family members, friends, who over the years had contacted me about their loved ones having issues. I had a family member who fell off the wagon 2 days after I buried my father because he ultimately passed. So, I've been up close and personal with this stuff. And I said, okay, those are the people I'm going to help. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just knew that was going to be my focus. So in February of 2016, I started my own law firm. I started out of the library here in Boca because they had free Wi-Fi, and I was broke. I had no money. I had nothing. In fact, I had to borrow a few shekels off my father because they were going to repo my car. So I spent the first couple of months running around to different treatment centers, handing out my business card because nobody knew who I was. I'd been in California, so nobody even knew I was in Florida. And it took 14 months before anybody called me with a substance use related case. In the meantime, I was taking different types of cases to pay the bills. I represented a student athlete who got himself in trouble with a co-ed. He was familiar with the Jameis Winston story where there was a sexual allegation made against him. That was the nature of the issue that he faced, along with another boy. So you can use your imagination on that one. But that was back then it was a sizable check. It was enough for me to take a very small office and write my first marketing check for a whopping $1,250, which I was sure was going to bounce, but it didn't. And it's been one hell of a journey. In my second year of practice, I met my now fiance who was doing guardianship work, and she told me how she lived up in Massachusetts. She had her children up there, and then when she got divorced, came down here. And what we realized was that we could use the guardianship process, which is a statute that pretty much every state has, but it's traditionally been used for elderly people. It's never really been used for people with substance use and mental illness, but it's a really great weapon to use when you need a lot of control over somebody because they're completely out of control. And so we started doing a lot of guardianship work. The Marchman Act, which we can talk about in a bit. We started doing a lot of Marchman Act. I still took some criminal cases, and fast forward, we're midway through year 8, and now we have a team of 8. There's 4 lawyers, 2 paralegals, 2 intake people, and we take calls from all over the country from mums and dads whose adult children have substance use, mental health disorders, failed attempts at treatment and recovery. And I'm also barred in Massachusetts now. Audra practiced up there for many years, and we were spending a lot of time up there because we went to see her son play hockey. And I developed a real passion for being from Old England. I developed a passion for New England. And by the way, I went to Michigan, so of course I was a big Patriots fan. And by the way, Randy, when he moved to the Buccaneers, I was a Buccaneers fan too. So I felt a real kinship with you for at least a couple of years there. And I do remember texting you when the Buccaneers. You had one hell of a season. The Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. And if I'm right, Baylor won the NCAA tournaments. That was one hell of a year for you. But
yeah, that was Lightning won the Stanley Cup. I think the Rowdies won the Siren. I mean, everything was going good in Tampa. It was Champa Bay then.
I love it. So that's what I do. But it's interesting. I remember meeting Randy because I went to see a treatment center, and I sat down with this very nice lady, and I don't remember who it was, but maybe it was Lake Worth Boynton, and she said, "Oh, you should meet. You need to meet Randy." Randy walks in. I look at him, and I said, "Jesus Christ, that guy's got enormous hands." I looked at him. I said, you ever consider playing football? And he looks at me like, okay, this guy's an idiot. He's got to be. So, of course, he said, well, I did play a little football, just a little. And then, so, of course, I got to know Randy over the years. And he's an inspirational figure. And listen, for any of us to meet somebody who played, especially professional football, it's like, I mean, maybe you don't look at yourself this way. Maybe your family doesn't look at you. But I see these professional athletes, especially football, they're like superheroes, right? I mean, 10 years the NFL.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story. And your recovery story is almost as amazing.
I'm paying the price for it now. And you're so good at what you do, and I really respect what you do, and what you do saves lives. And, I think you've got an awesome thing going. I would like to know, if this isn't a long answer, what the difference between guardianship and Marchman Act is.
Okay.
If there is a short answer for it.
Well, I'll give you the very brief answer. That's like asking a lawyer to. That's right. I'll give a brief answer. All right. We get paid with a word. So the Marchman Act is a statute unique to Florida. I think only Kentucky has a similar law. I think it's called Casey's Law. So it's basically a court order here in Florida that directs somebody who has a primary substance use disorder to go to treatment for a period of up to 90 days. And there's a period of assessment, there's a period of treatment. The assessment period can be initiated on what's known as an emergency ex parte basis, meaning I can go get a court order, which is good for 5 days. They don't know about it until the cops and one of my guys show up to pick them up and get them off the streets, because a lot of the time these people are literally on the streets or they are missing, and so we got to go find them, and we take them somewhere safe. So it's a very useful tool, but it's very narrow in application. It just says, Randy, you will go to treatment for 90 days, right? And we can extend it past 90 days if necessary. Guardianship is much broader in application, because what guardianship does is it basically turns the clock back. So when somebody obviously is 18 years of age, the idea being that you're an adult and you get to make decisions, about how you live your life, who you spend time with, your religious beliefs, whatever it happens to be, you get to make those decisions. Now, there's a point in time sometimes when somebody is suffering from some type of mental health issue, and there could be substance use related too, where it appears that objectively you're not making very rational decisions. You're getting arrested, you're taking recreational drugs that are placing your life at risk. You're not taking care of your family. You're not eating. You're not bathing. You're spending time with people who are, I guess, undesirables. Maybe it's a political term, but you know what I mean. People who don't have your best interests at heart. And somebody needs to help you, and somebody needs to make a decision for you, because otherwise you're either going to end up dead in the state's mental health system or in the state's criminal justice system. And so we want to be in a position where typically a mom or a dad or both are going to be able to make decisions for you. So the guardianship process enables us to turn that clock back to a period of time when somebody was not 18 years of age and they didn't have the legal right to make decisions for themselves. And so by going to court and getting a guardianship, and again, there's an emergency piece of that too, we're basically taking the decision-making process away from them, giving it to mom and dad, and allowing mom and dad to make decisions like, you will go to treatment. We're going to control your finances. We want access to your medical records. We want to make medical decisions for you. We want to restrict your ability to travel. We want to restrict your ability to contract and do things like get married and things of that nature. So it's much broader in application. And sometimes the two will work together, because with the Marchman Act, I can go get a court order without them knowing about it and just grab them literally. And so even with an emergency guardianship, it can take us 4 or 5 days to get into court, depending on the county we're in. And so that 4 or 5 days is a critical time because it's the time between somebody being saved and not saved, being saved. It's the time between them getting on a plane and disappearing and not disappearing. So if sometimes we'll do them together. And so it's a
Mark, let me ask you something, Mark, real quick. Does this apply to mental health issues as well? Or are you strictly in the addiction and alcoholism reign? Or do you also help with some mental health as well?
So that's a great question. And I appreciate you asking me that one. So Marchman is primary substance use. You have to be able to prove primary substance use.
Okay.
Guardianship can be both. Can be mental illness. It can be substance use. Both, one or the other. I mean, obviously since COVID, I mean the mental health issues are. We're doing more guardianships than Marchmans, to be quite honest with you, because the Marchman Act just isn't a powerful enough tool when you're dealing with somebody who's got a significant history of mental illness.
Can a spouse?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, but and that does happen, but it's very rare that it's one spouse getting guardianship over the other. It's typically mums and dads. I mean, we take calls from literally all over the country. I mean, we've had clients, international clients. We had one in Italy. We had one in Panama. We have a mum right now who got a guardianship in Hawaii, and I sent. We have an interventionist that went over there to get the guy back here. He actually got Baker Acted halfway down through the journey. He was in Los Angeles. But she has a guardianship there. We're going to domesticate it here, meaning we're going to get a Florida court to recognize it once we get him back here. So, I mean, clients are everywhere, literally.
Now, the purpose of this guardianship is not to take control of somebody; it's to protect them. You're not just accepting where somebody wants to come in and I want to take control of all of their stuff. That's not what we're talking about. If somebody is in a danger to themselves or in danger of damaging themselves in some way, that's what we're talking about. It's a safety precaution. It's not meant so that somebody can take control of your life, right?
Right. So there's this sort of legal, phenomenon where we talk about the shield versus the sword, right? It's there to protect them. That's the shield, not to harm them. Now, every once in a while, I'll get somebody who calls up and says, I want to do a guardianship. And what's really going on here is they want to take control of the person's money because there's a trust fund somewhere. And that's what I call the sword and not a shield, right? Or I've had people call me and say, I want a Marchman Act my loved one. Or I want a Marchman Act my son or loved one. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, I want him out of the house. What do you mean you want him out? I just want him out of the house. Well, then you need to call a lawyer who does eviction work because this is a shield. I'm trying to help them, not kick him out and put him on the street and make things worse. So I'm probably not your lawyer. So
I wish I had your number a couple of wives ago. I had some moves I would have liked to have made. We've got an interesting trio here because with myself and Addicted Communities Coalition, One Brother, One Sister, the trainings that we train people to go out and do interventions and to interact and help people who are out in the communities. And we want more boots on the ground, people out there helping. And then, Randy, you're looking for the solutions for them. If you want help, let me find something for you. Let me find a way to help you. And you're hustling down there, trying to get them where they belong and get them the help that they need. And Mark, you're kind of like that catch-all in between. It's like, if you're not finding what you need and you keep going down that rabbit hole, this is our safety net. We're going to catch you this way. So this is really a very nice trio in trying to make a difference. Speaking specifically about addiction, though, with the time we have left, I'd really like to address this. Randy, you've been retired for 2 years from football? You're a young man.
Yeah, right.
You've been retired from football for a while, but you've been involved in your recovery and involved in helping people for a while. Mark, you just said you've been doing this for years, 8 years. I've been doing this for quite a while too. Have we made progress in how we're helping people with addictions? And what more should we be able to do for people? Either one of you can just run with that.
Some days I think we've made a lot of headway, and then there's some days that I think we've taken 2 steps back,
Yeah.
It changes all the time. And that's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the disease. It's the nature of the industry. We like to try to think we're doing the best we can, that we get the people to the appropriate locations or places that they're supposed to be. And once we get them in front of therapists, we want to think that we've got them to the right place. But, ultimately it's going to be up to the client to engage and really, really be a part of their own recovery and not just do time, you know. And I'm always, you know, telling people that while they're in treatment, you can't just come here and do time. You've got to engage. We've got to figure out what makes you do what you do. And so I think there's a lot we can do in the industry better. But I think, and you might agree with me, over the last, especially 5 years, but maybe even the last 8 to 10 years, there's been more people speaking out about their substance abuse and about their mental health issues. And, you know, like I said at the start of the show, I think there's more people out there recovering out loud. And I think it makes it easier for people to put their hand up and ask for help, because I think it's more obvious now that it's okay to not be okay, but you've got to ask for help.
Absolutely. And Mark, with your practice, you said, you know, you started off and you went months trying to get one client, and now you've got people answering phones from across the country. Is there been a shift in maybe the stigma that people are more willing to ask for help for their loved ones now? Are you seeing that?
Well, I think there's no question about it. I mean, I think that the initial thought was way back when was, well, this was a choice, right? Or you must be a bad person, that's why you're using, or you must be a bad person, that's why you have a bipolar disorder. And now I think what we've come to realize is the science has started to catch up with that. And, you know, and of course it's continuing to evolve in terms of how we treat people. But I think we've obviously realized that it's a disease, right? And it's not a choice, and that you got to treat it as such. And so, you know, a bit like cancer, where you go into remission, when it comes to substance use and mental health issues, you're talking about recovery, right? It's not a cure, right? It's about getting that person into a period of recovery where they can maintain it and develop the skill set so that they can continue to maintain it and have, you know, lifelong recovery and lead a fruitful and great life, live their best life. So I think from the treatment perspective, it's things have changed. I also think from the legal perspective, you know, our judges are far more switched on to, you know, these issues, right? I mean, the idea being, you know, it's probably cheaper to treat somebody than to incarcerate them. It's cheaper to get them treatment and to continue to rearrest them and have them come through the criminal justice system. So, you know, the system itself is getting better at it. But I do think, on the other hand, that, you know, one of the big issues is making treatment available to everybody. And so, I mean, one of the issues that we have to deal with when somebody calls is, do you have health insurance or the resources to pay for treatment? And, you know, that we need to know that, because obviously if you don't have those, if insurance and resources is not there, then we have to talk about a different, you know, an alternative. And there are county facilities, but most often they're overwhelmed.
Yes.
And they're trying to cycle people through as quickly as possible. And it's not because they don't care. It's that they have a waiting list outside the door, and they're trying to get as many people in as they possibly can, even if it's for a brief period of time. And so, you know, while we've come a long way, and also here in Palm Beach, you know, we've been cleaning up the industry for the last 5 years. You know, there's a lot of work to do, and a lot more people are going to need our help, and it's only going to get worse. So,
you know, I'm glad to hear that the courts are starting to look at it differently. I'm glad to hear that. I've seen some experience with that too, with clients that I've worked with. Randy, how about you? You're still very involved in the NFL and a lot of other sports and organizations. Are you seeing a change in the way that they're viewing it as well? I mean, we talked at the beginning of the show about, you know, they're looking at concussions now in a different light. Are they looking at addiction and mental health in a new light now, or do they still got a long way to go?
They still have a long way to go. You know, 14 years ago when I came into recovery, there was nothing out there for former NFL players. And since then, and through our advocating over the last 14 years, or really 13 years with Athletes in Recovery, you know, now there's 3 or 4 different organizations out there that are willing to help former NFL players, and not just NFL players, but Major League Baseball and MMA and the PGA and even the Jockeys Guild, you know, HISA, Horse Racing Integrity Safety Authority. There's organizations out there that, you know, like we were talking about, a lot of the stigma is gone, and it's okay now to start talking about mental health and substance abuse issues. And there are organizations that'll help, and there's resources available. And I'm really proud of that, because, you know, I was on the ground floor and I helped kind of initiate that with the NFL through the Player Care Foundation. And, you know, that's one of the legacies that I hope I leave, is because like I said, when I came in, there was nothing out there for former players. There was nobody dealing with what I call transitional trauma, when you don't have that uniform anymore. And now there's a lot of organizations that are out there, and I'm grateful for all of them, because there's been a lot of people helped through those organizations.
And let's not forget about your own organization, which is Professional Athletes in Recovery, I believe it's called, right?
Right. And I just wanted my addiction and everything that I put everybody through, and my reputation and finances and everything. I wanted it to mean something. And I wanted to give back in some way. And really, I started it just to be a bridge for resources between a player that's struggling and resources. And, it's done that plus some. And so I'm just really proud of the number of people, and not just athletes, but anybody looking for, help from this disease. I'm really proud of the number of people we've been able to help over the last 13 years.
Wow. In 10 years in the NFL, I'm sure you had, a lot of fans that you were their hero. And if you weren't their hero, you were knocking their heroes on their ass. That's what you were doing.
Oh.
But you were part of the deal out there. You were the big deal. And to put that all and say, listen, I did those things, but this is who I really am now. And this is what I do now. And to do that, unabashedly, and to be proud, like you said, recover out loud.
And I used to think football was the most important thing in the world, that it was life and death, And now I realize God was just preparing me all those years to do the real life and death work that we do today. And, people ask me all the time what I miss most about football, and it's not being out on that field, playing the game, being between the bleachers, under the lights. I miss the locker room. And that's what recovery has given me back, is a locker room.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Mark, to you as well. I mean, you could be killing it as a defense attorney. You could be, probably raking it in hand over fist. Might have been retired by now, sailing a boat around the world or something. I know. Don't roll your eyes, because I'm glad you're doing what you do.
I'm just thinking about all the mistakes I've made through my life.
Are you glad you made these choices? Is what you're doing now as rewarding as you hoped it would be, or maybe even more rewarding than you hoped?
Well, it's more rewarding. I mean, this is what was missing from my life. It's probably why after I got divorced, I wasn't able to maintain a relationship with anybody, on a romantic level. So from that perspective, it's been truly amazing. But I mean, it also, after my father passed, I was able to financially take care of my mom. But now we have staff working for us. I mean, for instance, my office manager, when we hired her, she's a single mom. And she also had a sister who was in treatment. And actually, ironically, and I won't share her name with you, but her father just retired as an NFL coach. I think he was a tight ends coach. I'll talk to Randy about it. He'll know who he is. But and now she's been able to get an apartment, and she's got stability in her life. Lewis, who's my senior associate, who actually was a colleague of mine at the state attorney's office, he's been able to buy himself a house. He's a veteran. He's got stability in his life. And so, by building this business, which we built by helping lots of people, we've been able to help more people and build a team, and it's enabled them to have their best lives too, which puts them in a position to help more people. So the reward is, I mean, it sort of multiplies every day, right? But with any business that has its struggles, and we're dealing with people who are, very emotional, and they've been dealing with this, for years and years and years. And there's no, I don't have a magic wand. What I have is, I have hope, right? And it's going to take time, because this has been going on for a long time, and you don't fix that in 30, 60 days. So it's incredibly rewarding. It's very stressful. The phone is on to 24/7. If I have one regret, it's that my father passed when we were 11 months in, so he didn't get to see any of this. So I have his photograph in my office, which reminds me that I am actually turning into him, which is probably not a bad thing. But he's just not here to see it, or maybe he is. And
I have a feeling he sees it. I have a feeling he sees it.
So yeah, it's amazing work, and it's very satisfying. And I mean, look at all the cool people I get to meet. I mean,
yeah.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you a question. And this is kind of, sorry, I should have asked it earlier.
It's okay.
I know you're coming out to see Dr. Flowers' operation, or you already did.
No, we're coming out next month. Yep,
Okay.
we're coming
Are
out.
you licensed? Can you work in Texas? Can you work in any state?
I can't, but I think Texas is one of the states where I could quote waive in, which means filling out an application, giving them money, and then they spend the next 6 to 9 months looking at every mistake I ever made in my life, traffic tickets, civil lawsuits, divorces, and all that stuff to make sure I'm not about to go steal my client's money. And then they give me a license. So I mean, the Massachusetts thing took over a year and a half because everything was delayed by COVID, and I think you can waive into Texas too. So, and people have asked me.
That's good to know.
People are like, I get asked them, do you want to waive in here? Do you want to waive in there? Like New York and Connecticut, New Hampshire, I think I can waive into at least one of those, or maybe all three. Texas, I know I can waive into. So, listen, one of the things we'd like to do is allow other law firms to maybe do the work we do, and we would help them to set it up. I mean, that's possible. I'd love to do that. And I think we could really help them and teach them how to do this stuff, and then we could really help a lot of people because, not everybody can come to Florida, or not everybody can come to Massachusetts, and there's great treatment in Texas, right? So we can help a lot more people, and a lot more people are going to need our help. So it takes a village.
Yeah, it does. It does, and it's networking. It's networking and putting together teams like this threesome right here. These three amigos that you guys are looking at. We're all dedicated to the same thing, and that is why we're bringing you this podcast, The Champion's Journey. We will be talking about sports. We will be talking about champions in life. We'll be talking about rough journeys and really just people who are taking a path of I don't want to say a path of righteousness, but certainly the path of right and doing the right thing and helping people. And that's what we want to be talking to. And who knows, maybe along the way, like I said, we're going to have a few laughs. We had a few today. Maybe we're going to discover some things about each other, and once they figure out that I'm like an Eagles fan through and through, I'm not sure how close of friends we'll be anymore, but that's just the way it is. I just love my Eagles. But this is a serious issue, what we talk about. Addiction is a serious issue. If you or somebody that you care about is struggling, ask for help today. As we wrap up this show, maybe we could all point to the fact this isn't like it was 20 years ago. This isn't like I can go on a bender for a weekend and I'll be okay. We got drugs out there like fentanyl that have changed the game. People go out and they're using once and they're dying. Fentanyl has changed the way we have to look at addiction. We have to look at it with immediacy and urgency. If you know somebody has a problem, reaching out tomorrow might not be good enough. You have to reach out today. Randy, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Too many one and dones, We're losing an entire generation of young people right before our eyes, and we've got to do something, And I hate this disease. I hate what it does to people. I hate what it does to families. And, we've just got to stay on top of it and advocate every day for people that are struggling.
Absolutely. Mark, has fentanyl made an impact on your practice as well?
Yeah, look, last year we lost one person who'd been in recovery. In October, I got that phone call, not a phone call to get from parents. In 2021, we lost 3 people. So maybe I'm the only lawyer in the country who knows that every year you might get that phone call or more than one phone call. So it's serious stuff. And my heart just bleeds for the families that just, can't make the decision or the commitment to get their loved ones in treatment and just keep them there. I mean, we see this a lot, right? Families call us for years and years. Oh, I'm not ready yet. They're going to go voluntarily. Well, okay, they've never gone voluntarily, so nothing has changed. We're not ready to do it. Listen, I'm here when you need me. You know what I mean? And so maybe that's the frustrating part about what we do is knowing that you can help people and they have the resources to get the help and they just simply can't make the commitment. And there's a myriad of reasons that, we could do a whole show on, but that's maybe the saddest part of what we do because we could save a lot more people.
Fantastic. Mark, we haven't built all of our graphics in yet. That's going to be coming next week. So if people want to reach out to you and learn more about what you do or your law firm, how do they get a hold of you?
So the main number to the office is 561-419-6095. That's 561-419-6095. And they can find us on the web at drugandalcoholattorneys.com. That's drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or just Google my name, you'll find me.
There we go. And Randy, if people want to learn more about what you're doing or ask you questions, how do they find you, brother?
Yeah, if you can't find me, you're not looking very hard. I'm on all the social. You can also go to proathletesinrecovery.org. You can go to even the book website, which is offcenterthebook.com. But I'm out there, randygrimespeaks.com. I'm out there. You can find me.
Absolutely.
And I'm always available.
If you want to learn more about what we're doing over there with our trainings and our education, easiest way to do it, go to onebrother1sister.com. You could use the numbers or spell out the words, either way. Onebrother1sister.com. Find out what we're doing, learn about our trainings and stuff, and our new partnerships, working with Randy, working with Mark, and our mission. Our mission is to get the word out there. Listen, 20 years ago, nobody would mention the word addiction. Now you can't get a good Hollywood role unless you've been to 3 rehabs. It's just... life is changing, and that's good, but we all have to speak up. We can't let it go anymore. It's not acceptable. It is not acceptable that 750,000 people over the last 2 decades have died from addiction. If we carry on at the same pace in the next 2 decades, we could lose 3 million people if it carries on at the same pace. It's time to draw a line in the sand and say no more. We're here to help you. We're here to educate you. And hopefully you'll be joining us each week. Next Tuesday, the Champions Journey podcast will be back at 5 o'clock Eastern time and 4 o'clock wherever Randy's coming from, because we don't know what state he'll be in. Sometimes he doesn't even know. It's just like a football game. He doesn't even know. Doesn't even know until he sees which restaurant they're eating at that night. I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate everything you guys do, and we appreciate all of you for listening out there. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
See you next week. We're excited to see everybody and help a lot more people. And it's good to be here with both you guys.
Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
We're very excited. But again, please subscribe to our channel. Share this with your friends. We'll catch you next week. For Scott, Mark, and Randy, everybody take care.